Barcelona are looking for a new striker, and one name has suddenly appeared. Luis Suarez. Yes, Luis Suarez. But not the one you remember. This Luis Suarez is Colombian. He is 28 years old, and last season he scored 28 league goals in just 32 games for Sporting. But that is only the beginning. Across all competitions, he finished the season with 38 goals. Barcelona were not supposed to be looking at him first. Julian Alvarez was the dream. But with that deal becoming increasingly difficult, Suarez has suddenly appeared as one of the alternatives. And then comes the next shock. Sporting have an €80 million release clause, so why would Barcelona even consider that kind of money for a player who was not their first choice? Because this is not just another striker who waits inside the box. He runs behind defenders, attacks space, presses aggressively, occupies centre-backs, and finishes chances fast. Put that profile inside a Barcelona team already designed to dominate the ball, and the attack could become much more dangerous, maybe even scary. But before we imagine Luis Suarez wearing Barcelona colours, there is one question we have to answer. Who exactly is this Luis Suarez, and how did he suddenly become one of the most dangerous number 9s in Portugal? The strange thing about Luis Javier Suarez is that his career never looked like the career of a future Barcelona target. There was no straight line from a famous academy to a giant club. He left Colombia young, entered European football through Spain, and spent years moving between clubs, countries, and different levels of pressure. Granada, Watford, Zaragoza, Marseille, Almeria, and eventually Sporting. For a long time, he looked like the kind of striker who could be useful, dangerous, even productive, without ever becoming one of the names that dominated a transfer window. Then Sporting gave him the platform he needed, and everything accelerated. There is another reason this breakout feels different from a one-season statistical accident. He did it immediately. This was his first season at Sporting, and by early March he had already crossed the 30-goal mark in all competitions. He was scoring in league matches, in Europe, and in high-pressure moments when Sporting needed a rescue. That speed of adaptation matters. New club, new league, new expectations, and instead of needing a year to settle, he became decisive almost immediately. It suggests that the form was not built on comfort alone. It was built on habits that travelled with him. The runs, the duels, the timing in the box, and the willingness to attack the next chance did not disappear when the opponent changed. That is exactly the kind of evidence a bigger club would look for before deciding whether a late-blooming striker is having one hot season or has genuinely reached a new level. In Portugal, Suarez did not simply score more goals. He became the reference point of an attack. He learned how to carry responsibility, how to stay involved when space disappeared, and how to punish teams in different ways. That matters because the number 28 can fool you if you only see it on a graphic. 28 league goals sounds like a finisher standing inside the penalty area and waiting for chances. That is not the full picture. Watch how he moves before the chance arrives. He can pin a centre-back, drop toward the ball, bounce a pass into midfield, then turn and attack the space he has just created. He can threaten the channel between full-back and centre-back. He can arrive at the near post. He can attack the second ball. He can chase a defender who thinks the possession is safe. And when the game becomes chaotic, he does not disappear. He keeps looking for the next action. That is one of the reasons his season became so difficult to ignore. Sporting were not getting one kind of goal from him. They were getting penalties, close-range finishes, runs into space, headers, rebounds, quick combinations and goals late in matches when the pressure was at its highest. In February alone, he scored 7 league goals in 4 matches and was named the league's Player of the Month. Earlier in the season, he produced his first Sporting hat-trick. In the Champions League, he'd scored against elite opposition, including 2 goals against Paris Saint-Germain. By the time the season finished, this was no longer a nice story about a Colombian striker having a good year in Portugal. This was a 38-goal season from a forward entering the peak years of his career, and that changes the question Barcelona have to ask. They are not looking at a 21-year-old prospect and hoping he develops. They are looking at a striker who appears ready now. That is especially important because Barcelona's number 9 position has changed. Robert Lewandowski has left after 4 seasons, and Hansi Flick's team is entering a new cycle in attack. Barcelona still have extraordinary talent around the forward line. Lamine Yamal can destroy a defender 1-against-1 and create from the right. Rafinha can attack space, press aggressively, and arrive from the opposite side. Pedri can find passes that other midfielders do not even see. But a team with that much creation still needs someone who turns movement into a target. Someone who gives the centre-backs a problem every time the ball reaches the final third. Someone who threatens behind them so they cannot simply step forward and squeeze the pitch. That is where Suarez becomes interesting. Imagine Lamine receiving wide on the right. The defender wants to double team him. If the centre-back shifts across, Suarez can attack the gap. If the centre-back stays narrow, Lamine has more room. Now imagine Pedri receiving between the lines. A striker who only wants the ball to feet makes the picture smaller. A striker who immediately threatens the space behind the defence makes the picture larger. Pedri suddenly has 2 options: play into feet or release him behind. Now add Rafinha arriving from the other side. The defence has to protect width, depth and the centre at the same time. This is why a striker can make an attack more dangerous without touching the ball 20 times. His movement changes what everyone else is allowed to do, and Suarez has spent the last season showing that he is comfortable being that reference. He does not need every possession to revolve around him. He needs defenders to keep checking where he is. That creates fear, and fear creates space. There is another part of his game that fits the intensity of a Hansi Flick team: work without the ball. Reports describing Barcelona's interest have highlighted Suarez's willingness to work, and the footage shows a striker who is comfortable engaging defenders rather than waiting for the next attack. That does not automatically make him a perfect Barcelona number 9. The demands at Barcelona are different. Opponents can defend much deeper. Space can disappear. Every first touch becomes more important. Every missed chance becomes louder. But that is exactly why his ability to play with his back to goal matters. When the run behind is blocked, he can become a wall for the players around him. Receive, protect, lay the ball off, then turn toward the box. Barcelona do not need a striker who only finishes the move. They need one who can help the move survive when the center of the pitch becomes crowded. And this is where the comparison with Julian Alvarez becomes fascinating. Julian remains Barcelona's priority according to the latest reports. His profile is younger, more established at the very highest level, and naturally attractive for a club planning the next several years. He has also made clear that he wants to leave Atletico Madrid. So if Barcelona can make that operation happen, Luis Suarez may never become more than a name on a list. But transfer windows do not move according to perfect plans. Atletico have already shown how difficult an Alvarez deal can be, and Barcelona have begun looking at alternatives. According to the latest reports, there have not yet been formal talks between Barcelona and Sporting, but Barcelona have asked the player's environment about his situation. That distinction matters. This is interest, not a completed transfer. And then comes the number that could decide everything. 80 million euros. That is the release clause in Suarez's Sporting contract. It does not mean Barcelona will pay 80 million. It does not mean Sporting will demand exactly 80 million in a negotiation that has not even formally started. It tells you Sporting are protected, and it creates the most uncomfortable question in this story. How far would Barcelona go for a player who is currently an alternative to Julian Alvarez? On one side, Suarez is 28. He is not a long-term development project. Barcelona would be buying the prime years now. On the other side, that may actually be the attraction. There is less mystery about what he is supposed to become. He has just scored 38 goals. He has experience in Spain. He has played in France, England, and Portugal. He has Champions League experience. He has already had the difficult years, the loans, the moves, and the pressure of proving himself again. Barcelona would be betting that all of those years have produced a striker ready for the biggest stage at exactly the right moment. And there is something else that makes the story impossible to ignore. The name. Luis Suarez at Barcelona already means goals, aggression, movement, and one of the great number 9s of the club's modern history. Luis Javier Suarez should not be compared to the Uruguayan legend simply because they share a name. That would be unfair. He does not need to become that Luis Suarez. He needs to become the first version of himself that Barcelona fans remember. But imagine the pressure if this transfer happens. Every headline will make the comparison. Every goal will bring the old name back. Every missed chance will do the same. The only way to escape that shadow would be to score, and scoring is the one thing the Colombian has just done more consistently than almost anyone in Portugal. That is why this potential move is more interesting than a normal Plan B story. Barcelona may begin with Julian Alvarez as the dream, but the alternative is not a random emergency signing. It is a striker coming off the best season of his career, entering his prime, with a skill set that could make the players around him even more dangerous. The risk is real, the jump is real, the price question is real, but so is the upside. Give Lamine Yamal a striker who attacks the space he creates. Give Pedri a runner who forces defenders to turn toward their own goal. Give Rafinha a central reference who occupies the centre-backs while he attacks from the opposite side. Give Flick a number 9 willing to press, duel, run and finish. Suddenly, Barcelona do not just have more goals in the team. They have more ways to hurt you, and that is the part opponents should care about. Luis Suarez does not have to arrive and become the biggest star in Barcelona. If he makes the defenders take one step deeper, if he turns one cross into a goal, if he gives one midfielder an extra passing lane, if he creates one more second for Lamine to attack his fullback, then the entire front line becomes harder to control. That is how one striker can make a team scary. The deal is not done. Barcelona still have Julian Alvarez at the top of their list, and Sporting have every reason to protect the striker who just gave them a historic season. But if the first plan collapses, remember this name. Not the Luis Suarez Barcelona already remembers. Luis Javier Suarez. The Colombian who took the long road through Europe, exploded at 28, scored 38 goals, may now be one decision away from the biggest challenge of his career. So the next time you see Barcelona linked with Luis Suarez, do not laugh at the name. Watch the movement, watch the finishing, watch how many different problems he gives a defense. Because if Barcelona decide he is the answer, the question will no longer be, who is this Luis Suarez? It will be, how dangerous can Barcelona become with him?